We're going to do a making words activity using these letters. A, we need 2 E's, a D, a G, an N, 2 R's, and an S. Either pause to get your letter cards ready or manipulate the ones available to you digitally. So you will also need paper and something to write with because you want to record your words as you go. So let's get started. We're going to start by making the first word, the short vowel word, and that is end. Using those 3 letters, we can make the word end. So please be sure to go ahead and start your list. Of course, using what we know about end, we can add an S on, and we can turn end into send. Now for our next word, we're going to take a look at a vowel combination, Ene. Ene can make many different sounds when we put them together. For example, Ene can make the long E sound like in read. I like to read a book. However, Ene can also make ed to sound like a short E if I'm writing something like I read the book. In this case, read and read are spelled the exact same way, but they sound differently. Now, homophones are 2 words that sound the same. However, in this case, read and read are what we call homographs. They're written the same way, but they have different sounds. Graph meaning to write and phone meaning sound. Let's take a look and see if we can find a homophone here. If we flip the beginning and the end, we come up with the word dear, and we have a completely different sound with the E and the A. This would be dear, like dear mom, if you're writing a letter, or calling someone a dear. And it's spelled E-A-R. But now, let's look at a homophone, a word that sounds the same as dear, but is spelled differently. So we have dear, D-E-A-R, and then we have deer, D-E-E-R, like the animal. So we can have deer and deer. Deer and deer are then homophones because they have the same sound but different spellings. So that's the difference between a homophone and a homograph. So you should have deer and deer on your list. If you need to pause to catch up, that's fine. We're going to build a new word now. We have deer and antelope that might play home on the range. R-A-N-G-E, range. That A-N-G-E then is a interesting spelling, the G being silent at the end. Let's try a different word. This is something you might do if you're writing with a pencil. You might erase. Looking at the vowels in this word, there are 3 vowels, but it's only 2 syllables. Erase, because the E at the end is silent. Please be sure to add erase to your list. Now, we can add an R at the end of erase to make eraser, which is something that does. An eraser does that. that ER ending at the end, adding it on, changes from an object to something, or the thing that does. But notice how we didn't add another E at the end when we added the ER ending, but rather we just added the R. We can say that we dropped the E in erase to add the ER. Either way, eraser is spelled like this. So let's add eraser. Okay, now let's try something different. I want to go back to that A-N-G-E. And I'm going to add a D, but then I'm going to add an R at the end to make a word. And that word is danger. And if we're thinking about danger, we've got a word that rhymes with it. A ranger. So danger becomes ranger. Now let's go back to building read. And in building read, we can add an ending to describe someone who does that, and read becomes a reader. ER at the end, someone who does. So now we have reader. Now, we could add an S at the end then to make readers. I have a class full of readers. But let's take a look at read and watch what happens when we take the ER off of the end and then we move it to the beginning. We can have the prefix re, meaning to do again, and now rather than having a reader, we are going to reread something. Reread. Let's make send again with that short vowel E. And think about the suffix that we can add to the end that makes it someone who does. So the act is to send. Someone who does is then a sender. And so now we have a sender. Okay, let's move some letters around. And let's make a garden. We've got that short vowel at the end, but now we're adding this R sound with gar. So we have garden. We can have more than one garden then if we add an S to the end. Be sure you write these on your list. But if I want to talk about someone who gardens, I'm going to have a gardener. Can't spread that out a bit. So now I have a gardener, G-A-R-D-E-N-E-R. And then using all of the letters that I have here to build with, I can make a mystery word, and it is gardeners. It's so big it barely fits into my screen. Gardeners. G-A-R-D-E-N-E-R-S. gardeners, 3 syllables. So we have gardens. Then we had gardener, and now we have gardeners. So we made all kinds of words here, just using these letters. Now, I want to take a look for some rhyming patterns here. If I go back to the word danger or ranger, I can make a change to these words by taking off the first part, in this case, the single consonant, and danger and ranger, if I add a blend, STR, then becomes stranger. So I can use what I know about one word to make something with a rhyming pattern. And it's important that when we work with words, we start to see those patterns so that we know. So that's just one rhyming pattern that I can make. Now, if I go back to the idea of send, again, I can change the first part, and send can become spend. Please make sure that you're adding these words to your list. I can change spend to trend. There's a new trend in fashion. Or change to blend. I know I can blend sounds together to make new words. So these are the rhyming patterns to think about. Now I'd like to consider a few related words. Because if I go back to the idea of an eraser, a reader, a sender, or even a gardener, I've got that ER ending, which tells me it changes the word from something to something or someone who does. So here are some related words. If I take the word teach and I add an ER, teach becomes teacher. I can take the word farm and add ER at the end to farmer. So someone who farms. And here's another related example. I can speak, but someone who speaks is a speaker. I'll bet you can think of others. But don't forget to make sure that you've listed all of your words.